Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this installment of the Europlanet Society webinar series. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us for this session. A few bits of housekeeping before we get started. As you will probably got a pop-up as you joined the session is recorded. We record it for sustainability. We will place it on YouTube so that anybody who's not able to join us today will still be able to catch up on the discussion later on and access what we hope will be a bank of really useful resources that we've been building on YouTube for a couple of years now. These sessions are run for the benefit of you, the community. So if there are any topics that you would like to see covered, any speakers that you would like to hear from, or perhaps you'd like to speak yourself, please do let us know any suggestions by writing in to us, getting in touch. We really appreciate the input. And again, these sessions are intended to help you as much as possible. So we'd love to tailor them to what you would like to see. We have some more sessions in the calendar, a newly added one, which looks like it will be on Friday, the 12th of April, will be centered around the JUICE mission with some input from the scientists involved with that. It's very exciting. There'll be a formal notification of that that will be circulated soon. Then on the 30th of April, we're having a session about summer and winter schools, some of which are linked to Europlanet and others from other members of the community. I think these resources are a really powerful thing to tap into for networking and accessing a wider community and meeting people. And so we hope to cover some of these sessions, some of these schools and how we can get involved with them on the 30th of April. So please also consider joining us for those. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, please do put them down in the Q&A section on the tab at the bottom of your screen. We will have a dedicated portion of time for Q&A at the end of the session, but feel free to log them in as we go through. We are going to have a series of short talks today, followed, as we mentioned, by the Q&A. We're going to start with a presentation on EPEC from Melissa and Jesse. Then we're going to move on to hear from Eden Scott with Derek. We'll hear from Innoforge with Ross. And thank you, Vito, for joining us. Vito here is representing Space Careers UK. Once we're done with those, we'll have some questions and discussion from you guys. So today's session, we're looking at tools for you, the early career community of Europlanet. Being an early career it can be a turbulent time, lots of job searching and definitely tools sometimes are needed to help us with that process. So hopefully what we've got today is a panel of experts with useful input here to give you some tools, tips and contacts and to field your questions at the end. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Melissa and Jesse to talk to us about EPEC.
So hello everyone, nice to meet you all. I am going to share my screen so we can start with the presentation. So I think everybody should see it. Yes?
Yep.
Okay, so again, I'm very happy to introduce you the Europlanet Early Career Network. Of course, I'm going to talk with Jesse. I am going to introduce you the first part just to show you a little bit what is EPEC and how it's structured and what are our aims and goals. And of course, then we will introduce you later on the opportunities that you will have by joining our network. So first of all, as you probably know already, the Europlanet Early Career Network is of course part of the Europlanet Society. As you can see from the diagram, the Europlanet Society is divided in several working groups, and each group is taking care about different aspects of the Europlanet, like, for example, the outreach, or a group who is dedicated to organize the Europlanet Science Congress, which is the biggest congress related with planetary science occurring in Europe. And of course, there is also our group that has the the characteristic to be dedicated only to early careers. And when I mean early career, I mean a person whose last degree was obtained no more than 7 years ago. Okay, so I think many of you probably will fit in this definition. And what is interesting about our network is that our activities are created, managed, and organized also by early careers. So it is literally a network made by early career for early careers. Then we can summarize our aims with the 3 main points. Of course, the first thing is to build a strong network between all young professionals in order to create, of course, collaborations, not necessarily within EPEC, but also by developing personal projects or collaborate with research and similars. Then, of course, we want to organize events and activities which can be interesting for everybody who are starting their careers by proposing seminars, for example, workshops, and so on. Of course, we are going to show you later on all the activities that we are already running. But then I think joining our network as a volunteer provide also a nice opportunity to develop many skills. I summarize 3 skills here, but of course there are also other skills that you will develop. These include, of course, the team working, because our network includes people from many parts of Europe. So you are going to work within an international environment, and I think it's very important at the beginning of the career to learn how to deal with different cultures and different cultural heritage. And this is a very nice opportunity to do so, considering anyway the time we are living. So it is also a very friendly environment to do it and to create something together. Then, of course, since we are organizing events and activities, you can develop the organizational skills by adding, of course, this type of experience in your resume that anyway is well considered when you are applying to job positions. And because we are also taking care of the network, and many times we are leading a group of people, of course, you can develop also leadership skills. Then, of course, you can also check the website for more information, more contacts, and to see who are the people currently involved. I would like just to give you a very quick introduction about how EPEC actually started. The idea started with Lina Noack. She is currently part of the Europlanet Society. But at the time, she was involved in the organization of the activities for early careers during the EGU, which is another very big congress occurring in Europe. And the idea was, of course, to create some activities that could be attractive and useful for all the people who were starting maybe their PhD or the first postdoc and so on. And she proposed this type of activities also for the EPSC, so for the Europlanet Science Congress, that at the time was actually called the European Planetary Science Conference. Now it has another name. So when the EPSC 2014 happened, 3 courses were proposed. They were very successful, so the same courses were also recreated during the EPSC the following years, in 2015 in Nantes. And what happened is that the interest for creating a wider and bigger network that could increase those type of activities started to be formed, and then many members wanted to create a proper network, a proper space within Europlanet to create more activities in support of early careers. And so there is the beginning of EPEC as we know it today. Actually, at the time, they divided the group, the activities in 8 working groups that you can see summarized in the graph. because at the time there were always more people gathering, always more people interested to propose other activities and to carry on with those activities. So by the 2018, 2019, there were plenty of people who were part of the network and were taking care as volunteers of the many activities proposed. Then, of course, in 2019 and 2020, we all know that the COVID pandemic happened. And so, unfortunately, many of the activities needed to be moved as virtual. And we managed to gather together by proposing many activities that could occur as virtual and occurring and managed to create some activities like video contest and similar in support of early careers at the time. But after that, of course, EPEC needed to shift to another time. So we reach the 2024, and we see that, of course, we needed to recreate a new structure, considering that many people, of course, were not couldn't be considered an early career anymore. So we actually are currently looking for new volunteers to create a brand new EPEC, a new network. So just to give you a very quick introduction about the current structure, there are two co-chairs who are running EPEC, who are managing and coordinating the main activities. And those chairs are, of course, me and Jessie, that you will meet later on. And we are currently the representative of the network. So we usually take part to this type of activities, introducing the EPEC and the contribution within a Europlanet. And then there is also an EPEC committee that we are forming now. So many volunteers are showing up. So we are now recreating the network. Then there is a treasurer, Noah Sagi, and we say hello to him because he's another veteran like me, and he did a very nice job so far. And then, of course, there are the volunteers. We are recruiting and searching for them because more volunteers are present in the network, and more networking we can do, more idea sharing. And I think the network, we think that the network will be way more effective. And then, of course, there are the EPEC members, who are people who are joining our activities, but they are not exactly volunteers. So they are not creating the activities or managing the activities. That's the main difference. And now we do not have proper working groups, but we can split the activities of EPEC in two main blocks. There are the people who are taking care about the EPEC events, that are two, the EPEC Annual Week and the activities of EPEC at the Europlanet Science Congress. Jessie will tell you more about those later on. And then, of course, there are many of the EPEC activities that we decided to put all together as a whole. And these are the activities where I would like to point out very clearly. Jessie will tell you later on each of them, but I think there is a lot of space for all of you to take care of these activities as a volunteer, and there are many advantages to do so. And of course, we are going to talk you about it later on. Okay, this is just to provide some information about us. I am currently a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Padova, and Jessie is a PhD student at the Open University. And you can contact us directly if you would like to be part of the group as volunteer, or if you feel more confident and you would like to have a little bit more responsibility in terms of management, you can also be part of the EPEC committee. We are absolutely open and happy to welcome you on board and provide you some guides at the beginning, so you can take care of it in a smooth way. So Jessie, I let you to carry on the presentation, and thank you for the attention.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. So as Melissa mentioned, I'm also co-chair of EPEC. So I became co-chair of EPEC back in October. So been a few months now, been learning the ropes with Melissa, learning off sort of previous chairs. So like Erica and Inez, they used to be the chairs of EPEC, and we oversee these events and activities like Melissa mentioned. And so I'm just going to run through the EPEC events and the activities that we do, so you can see what opportunities are on offer for early careers. So this one is one of our big events, the annual week. So it's been going for a few years now, and as you can see, it's been in places like France and Portugal, even online during the pandemic. Excuse me. And so this is an event that happens pretty much every year, where we gather the EPEC network, and it's an event just for early careers, right? So people doing their PhD or recently just graduate from their PhD, or even master's students, can come and join the EPEC annual week and get different talks and seminars about early career development and other scientists in the field. So it's a really great gathering, and it's been received really, really well. The next slide, if that's all right, Melissa. You could be my clicker. So as I said, the annual week is brilliant for building a network of colleagues and just supporters really, and mentors that you can go on this journey with as an early career. Like Callum mentioned, it's quite a scary journey at first. You might not have been in academia for very long. You might not know the spaces where you can go and ask advice or find out about things that they don't necessarily, it doesn't teach you in a textbook, right? So you don't know how to network, or maybe you don't know how you can communicate your scientific ideas. And that's something that we really want to help with things like the annual week event and different kind of workshops. So I'm going to move on to talk about the EPEC at EPFC now, which is probably our biggest event of the year. So during the Europlanet Science Conference, which happens every year, we take up quite a big space at that conference, and we host events throughout the week. Like you can see on the top right, there's Noah presenting the Science Flash event, where you can get involved and get to know other early careers, or it might be their first conference, and they might just be looking to network with other early careers and someone to go through that conference with. And get the most out of that conference as an early career. Next slide, please. So, as I said, there's different events throughout the week at EPEC. And I'm just going to run through pretty quickly just some of the activities that we also run throughout the year. So these aren't at set times. You can join these at any point in the year. So this is probably one of my personal favourites, this EPEC profiles, where you can submit your story, your career story, and it can just give you more visibility in the community. So you can share the journey that you've been on, and Europlanet will publish your profile on their website and on social media. So you can share that, and it's just a platform to promote yourself, make yourself a bit more known in the community, which can be really important when it comes to getting a job after you finish your PhD, or however you decide to progress after your studies. So yeah, we invite you to submit your profile if that's something that jumps out to you, something that you might want to do. I really do recommend it. I think it's very important to share everyone's experience. We've all gone on different journeys throughout academia, and we all collaborate with different people, and it can be really important for other early careers to see the different types of journeys that you've been on. So the next activity is another brilliant one, which is our outreach stories. So Europlanet fund different outreach projects, essentially, where you can propose an idea, where you want to do an outreach activity, be it teaching astronomy to school children, or anything which falls under the remit of outreach within planetary science, really. We've had quite a few different examples of people where they use, for example, art, like Zach in 2019. He used art to present his science, to promote his science, and we we promote any of these sort of ideas which you can bring to the table. So it's up to you really. It's your space where you can present an idea, and we can share those with Europlanet and hopefully get this outreach event started and inspire the next generation of scientists, because you might be in early career, but it's also really important to inspire that next generation that comes after you, right? So next slide, please. Apologise, I'm a little bit ill, but we're going to get through it. So the podcast, the EPEC podcast, this is another brilliant one. We host this podcast on Spotify, on YouTube, Apple Music. We have these podcast episodes where you can listen to different postgraduate experiences, different activities that we host, and different guest speakers as well. So you can learn about PhD life, tips for life after the PhD, tips during, and I think it's just a really great space to hear people talk about what they've been through as an early career and their life in academia. It's a great chance to hone in your skills, whether you've done media before, you can help us run the podcast as a volunteer, or you've got an idea for an episode, we'd love to hear it. So please get in touch about that. We have another activity, so if any of these jump out at you, feel free to put your name down and say, okay, I quite like the sound of this, or even propose a new one. This is an example of an activity that someone proposed where they said we'd like to have a video contest during EPSC where you essentially make a 4-minute video where you talk about your research. So it's quite a fun way to present your research, right? So it's traditionally you have a presentation online or in person, but it's quite a nice way to present it in a different way. And it's quite fun as well. I mean, you can win registration and a travel grant even to the next CPSC. So it's a really great motivation to do this activity for early careers. And we're always looking for funding to go to these conferences. So it's, I really, really encourage you to get involved with this video contest. So next slide, please. Right, so another really, really important thing that EPEC promotes is our diversity seminars, and we've run quite a few in the past. We've had one quite recently as well from Miriam, where we wanted to promote empowering women within astronomy and just talk about her lived experience as a woman of colour within astronomy and how you can break down those barriers within planetary science. And it's just great to give a platform to diversity and to sort of further the diversity within the field, and also learn about some really, really great science that's going on. Priya's talk is a particular favourite. You can also go back and watch that. We run some really great talks and seminars which are accessible after the fact as well. I'll quickly do another activity, got some time. This is another part of being involved with EPEC. So we have engagement on our Twitter pages, our social media pages. So we're mainly on Twitter and Discord now. So you can find the Discord link on our Twitter page as well. And this is really important so you can see any opportunities coming up, be that jobs, workshops, conferences, and just hear about everything other early careers are doing and what we might want to get involved with. This way you can also see their profiles and hear about different activities that they might be up to. So I just want to finish on a sort of a note where I just want to say to anyone that's joined, it's really great that you've come to hear about EPEC and the other great things that are going on for early careers at the moment. And I would really encourage you to get involved, be that a volunteer or you just want to attend any of these events. You might not think you've got any skills that could help us, but I promise you this is the perfect time to gain that experience. I joined EPEC without any leadership experience at all. I started just managing the social media within communications, and then now I'm the co-chair with Melissa. So you really do learn a lot, and it's a great opportunity for leadership. And as it says there, we're always looking for new volunteers, be that someone that's got podcast experience, definitely podcast experience. We're looking for anyone that wants to help manage our social media, get a bit of experience with communications there, or just anything you'd like to propose. We're very open. We want to run these events for you, and we want to give you a platform to see what events that you would like to hold, and we would definitely support it. So please get in touch if any of those resonate with you. And it's been really brilliant to speak to you today. So thanks, Callum, for hosting the session.
Thank you, Melissa and Jesse. That was fantastic. EPEC has been a really key part of the Europlanet community in the sense of networking, and thank you for sharing that origin story. That's quite empowering, and for encouraging everybody to get involved where possible. Next, we're going to hear from Derek from Eden Scott. I'm excited to see what you have to say. Are you happy to share your screen?
Absolutely. Bear with me one moment, Callum, and
Thank you for joining us.
A bit of a cheer when you see this. So let me know that it's went through okay. I'm not much of a Zoom expert.
No, you're okay.
Okay, right.
We've got you. Yeah.
Perfect. Does that look okay?
We're just going into slideshow. We're not seeing it in presentation mode at the moment.
Oh,
I don't know.
Got a crash report from
No
Zoom.
worries.
Always very helpful.
That's okay. We can still see your screen share. We can still see your mouse, so I'm sure it'll buffer out in a moment. Okay, we've lost the screen share there.
Sorry, guys, I got kicked out of Zoom there.
No worries.
Yeah.
It happens.
It wouldn't be a webinar without any technical difficulties.
Absolutely. It's a key part of the experience, so don't worry.
Well, that's the learning experience. Callum, I keep getting a crash report. By any chance, would you be able to share the slides on my behalf? Would that be okay?
Of course, yeah. If you just give me a little nudge whenever you'd like me to change slide, I will bring those up for you.
We'll freestyle it.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Thanks for your patience, guys. Appreciate that.
No worries. Okay. Right, let me share. There we go.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, like I said, I appreciate you all joining today, and thanks again for bearing with us through some of the technical difficulties. As it was mentioned, there wouldn't be a webinar without some form of Zoom crash or PowerPoint disaster. But yeah, I guess what I wanted to do today was to share a little bit more about the transition from academia to industry and some of the key differences. Now, I first met Callum back in Belfast towards the end of last year. I was at the UK Space Agency conference, and we had a fantastic conversation about some of the great work that's going on at Europlanet, some of the projects and engagement that you're all involved in. And what I thought I could do today was hopefully share a bit more about the other side of things, which tends to be the industrial side. There are lots of opportunities and lots of considerations, but I think as well there are also a lot of myths that come around that. And I'm sure many of you will know of people who have either been in the industry before, you may have colleagues or friends, or even maybe yourself, you spent some time in industry, and sometimes there can be some misconceptions. So I guess my plan today was to share a very kind of boots on the ground and pretty kind of loose introduction into some of the key differences, maybe give you some considerations to make and perhaps squash some of those myths, and hopefully there'll be something useful that you can take away and at least give you some food for thought going forward. So yeah, next slide, please, Cal. So before I do that, it's probably helpful to introduce myself and why I think you should maybe listen to me. So my name's Derek Polowyj. I'm a senior consultant here at Eden Scott Recruitment. I've spent the last 5 years in one capacity or another working within the recruitment sector. And over that time, I've had the pleasure of speaking to thousands and thousands of individuals, both those actively seeking jobs and some of those who are just out there looking for a bit more advice, and equally hundreds of employers as well. And through that, I've managed to gain a really kind of pragmatic, I guess is the right word, understanding of some of the opportunities, some of the considerations, but really a unique window into some of the challenges that lie on both ends of the spectrum as well. So people that are currently in their academic roles, the elements that they might like about that, and equally some of the concerns or questions that they might have about the challenges of going into industry. Likewise, when I'm speaking with employers, those looking to recruit, those looking to grow their teams and really engage with candidates who are currently in industry-based roles, I think that is another kind of area where I've gained a lot of insight. What it is that they look for, and perhaps how you could use some of that knowledge to your own advantage to bridge that gap, and maybe consider a role within industry yourself. I'm also studying myself at the moment, so I find myself in a graduate apprenticeship, spending 4 days a week recruiting and 1 day per week studying at Heriot-Watt University. So if I look like I've gained some grey hairs, then that's exactly why. It's not an easy combination, but equally, I guess I can understand some of the challenges and equally some of the worries that can come with that job seeking process as well. So I'm hoping to allay some of those fears today. Next slide, please. Fantastic. Now, I guess the first word I wanted to introduce today, it's a bit interesting, maybe a word that you've come across before, but it's a term, porosity. And I think that really kind of quite neatly encapsulates some of the misconceptions or some of the thoughts that we have about the barrier between academia and industry. And it was a word that kind of came across when I was doing a bit of research and reading and listening to the transcript for the Nature Careers podcast, which is a really insight into the world of academia and industry. But I think we can sometimes envisage our kind of careers, both either academia or industry, as their own individual planets. And we tend to kind of focus ourselves on one of the other. And I think that's something we're good at doing as humans as well, isn't it? Kind of putting ourselves into one of two categories. And we can sometimes see that as quite a linear career, with a sort of one-way flow of direction. I think particularly when we start our careers off and, we start off in university, we kind of gradually make our way throughout the process into more senior research positions, whether that's going through master's, PhD, postdoc. And we can sometimes forget about the other side of the fence as well, which tends to be the industrial role. Now, I think porosity is a really neat way of kind of breaking down that membrane. And again, we sometimes think of it as impermeable, but I guess the idea I'd like to introduce is that actually there's a lot of opportunity for flow. Not just flow from industry, from academia into industry, but also the opposite way as well. And I think that especially nowadays, there's a lot to gain from a combination of the two. Next slide, please, Callum. Fantastic. So one of the interesting statistics that I came across when first looking at that was that out of 200 people that decide to take a PhD, only one of them becomes a professor, which is really interesting for me. And I think that really highlights the flow out of academia. Equally, a lot of those will choose to stay within academia. And when I'm engaging people who are maybe in an academic role, but they're thinking about how they can bridge that over to the industry, I tend to come across a lot of different points of resistance. And I've decided to list some of those on the screen as well, which come from conversations that I've had in the past. I think typically these sort of challenges, these doubts and these concerns can come internally. So from those around us, perhaps those that we're working with, those engaged in our research projects, our colleagues, our friends who, are comfortable in that environment. They're, I guess, within their own membrane, and they feel that, academia is great and that they're very much enjoying the position that they're in at the moment. And I think there's also an element sometimes that academia can be a bit of an own quantity. So, we've started off our careers here. We're obviously flourishing. We're going through a lot of fantastic research. It's very engaging. It's in an area that we're interested in. And I think a lot of the time we can have some concerns about moving that bridge and crossing over to the other side. So, like you said, typically when we consider these things, we're in the middle of a flourishing career. So, maybe perhaps worries about, what if I move away? Is there going to be an opportunity to come back? Will I have the chance to pick up my research again? Will I be able to return into a role? What about work-life balance? What about the different considerations? I haven't had much of a chance to try anything else like this. And I think it's a path that can be fraught with a lot of worry and a lot of concerns as well. Next slide, please. So what I thought might be helpful is to highlight some of the key differences, but equally some of the similarities as well between the world of academia and the world of industry too. huge big disclaimer, which I'll put in bold writing, that this is very much dependent as per the individual, as per the job role as well. But from kind of collating some of the information I came across, I thought this would be a helpful idea of hopefully putting some distinguishing parts in there. Again, my goal here isn't to decide you either way, just to give you some information to take away and think about. So typically we can find a difference in purpose. And this is something that I usually try and communicate to candidates that are looking to make a difference. It's a change in thought process. So we're swapping from pushing the boundary of knowledge, getting very heavily involved in our own sort of research, to driving profits ultimately and serving customers. And sometimes that can be a tricky hat to take off and put on again. You know, we're swapping our aspect from very much research-led to profit-led and outcome-led. But again, you'll note that there are some kind of key similarities within there as well. Another key difference I've noted is sometimes speed. And you know, the one analogy that really stands out on this front for me was a conversation I had with Shane Christoffen, he was the financial director for Skyscanner. And he very neatly put it as a speedboat. You know, when you're making that transition, you sometimes go from what can be a very kind of oil tanker is the right word, you know, where you've got your destination set for a couple of years, any moves can take a lot of pre-planning, to a speedboat where all of a sudden you're zipping across the Thames. And that can be really exciting and exhilarating. You know, you're zipping from point to point, getting to try lots of different areas. But equally, if you're not prepared or you're uncomfortable with that, you can very quickly find yourself tied up in knots. So again, it's another consideration to make as well. I think a lot around the culture as well. You know, we tend to see things are driven more commercially, and that financial incentives tend to come into it a lot as well. And maybe that's a consideration to make too, that the work that you're engaged in might have to change to perhaps, then focus on more financial-based incentives and innovation. And I think the idea here really is actually about not being able to do everything. From my own academic experiences as well, really a focus on kind of dotting every I and crossing every T. And sometimes we have to come to the understanding that that's not going to be possible. And a lot of the time, the industry's preference is actually to get things done quickly rather than done the best way, which can sometimes be a challenging mindset to get yourself around. But equally, what we're seeing now are a lot more opportunities for collaboration between the two. And I think we're really starting to break down the membrane between the two different worlds. And, a great example of that is within the AstraZeneca and Oxford vaccine. And that was a fantastic opportunity where industry and where academia came together, and they both put their strong suits on, and we managed to come to a fantastic outcome. And with a lot of the university-based outreaches and a lot of the programs and schemes that are coming now, I think we're really starting to kind of change that mindset and perception on both sides of the fence. I think equally we're also seeing that it isn't going to be a one-way street anymore. There's going to be certainly a lot of opportunity for you to go out there to learn a lot of these industrial traits. So operating in a different environment, understanding different skills, and then being able to bring that back. And I think all of this, at the end of the day, when you return back into academia, you're going to be bringing a different mindset, you're going to be bringing a different perspective, and that's going to be adding a lot more valuable input to your own research as well. So while there are some key differences and some similarities, I think there's a lot to gain from both, and we should see it more as a sort of meandering river rather than a one-way path. Next slide, Pascal. So with that in mind, I thought I'd share some of my strategies for success. And I think the point I really wanted to start on was a fantastic point made in the last slide, in the last presentation, which was about the network that you've got. And it's really encouraging to see that you're all on the call today, because that to me says that you've already given this a lot of thought and that you're engaged about thinking about your future careers. And I've got to say that you've already taken that first step, and it's fantastic. My advice would certainly be use the network around you, use the resources, and engage with everything that you can, because you've got some fantastic opportunities here for volunteering. There's some great resources, podcasts that you mentioned, and I think those are some fantastic ports of call to get yourself started off. Now, I wouldn't be a recruiter if I didn't mention LinkedIn. It's a massive resource for us, and for anyone that isn't on LinkedIn at the moment, I'd certainly recommend it. There's a lot to say about building your own personal brand, and we've got some kind of resources that I can share around that as well if that's of interest. But I think one of the key areas that you want to do is really kind of link your interest to the industry. So find out a bit more about some of the employers that are hiring there. How do they align with your research interest, with your previous experience? But also recognise as well that there are a lot of the softer skills and the more kind of personal based traits that translate very well into industry. These aren't two separate career paths. There's a lot of cross-pollination here. So the analogy that I love to use, because again, I'm mad for an analogy, is the detective's pinboard. So as you can see here, we've got lots of different points that are connected together by string. And I think this is a great way to paint a picture in your mind of how to demonstrate your experience in research and translate that into industry as well. So for example, critical thinking, that's going to be a massive part of the research that you're doing. How can we demonstrate that? How can we put that down on a piece of paper and on a CV? So you can see here, the idea is to take that point and connect it with a red piece of string. And when you begin doing that, I think you'll really be surprised about how much of the work you're doing at the moment really does align quite closely with the roles within industry as well. Another point I think we could all be doing a little bit better on, myself included, is really selling ourselves. I think a lot of the time we tend to be quite humble, sometimes a little bit bashful about the work that we're doing, but when it comes to dealing with industry-based hiring managers, I found the best approach is always to really sell yourself. Put your skills out there, put them at the kind of front and center of what you're doing, because it's really these things that are going to sell yourself for the opportunity, that are really going to demonstrate yourself as the best candidate for the job as well. And when you combine this with the sort of detective's pinboard approach as well, I think that's a really useful thing to do. But ultimately, lean on your network, speak to alumni, people that have went into out of academia and into industry. Pull on those resources. Maybe they were alumni from your course, maybe they're colleagues or friends of friends. I think you'll generally find that people want to help. People will be happy to share their success stories, their challenges, their trials and tribulations that they've experienced as well. And there's a lot to gain from that too. And I guess if we can get the next slide, please, Cam. I guess the point that I wanted to make was that it really isn't a one-way street, and that's not a concern that we should have at all. There are plenty of careers that we see where people are meandering in and out of both, and I think there's a lot to gain from that as well. There are fresh perspectives to be understood, and at the end of the day, you're going to be bringing a whole new skill set and a completely different paradigm and perspective to the research that you're doing as well. That's coming from an increased understanding from employers as well, and there's a lot to do. There's a lot to say, around the work that you're doing. So you can always come back. It's not something to worry about. I hope that's given you a bit more of an insight into what it looks like. Again, if there are any questions, anything else that I can help with, you want some advice, you're more than welcome to reach out as well. And I'm sure we can have time for questions at the end too.
Derek, thank you. That was a super presentation. I think it's really important that we do start to break down some of these myths that exist around a career that moves between academia and industry. And so I think this really helped us. So I really appreciate that. I particularly enjoyed the analogy about the meandering river. I think that's a very freeing expression. I really like it. Just as a quick reminder to us all in the session, we could just put our questions in the Q&A tab. I saw a couple of raised hands during that presentation, which is super. But we're going to come to Q&A at the end. So take your questions and put them in the Q&A, and we'll make them part of the discussion at the end. Thanks again, Derek. I'm going to stop my screen share and hand over to Ross from Innoforge. Are you able to share your slides for us, Ross?
Yeah, I should be. I just want to make sure it's...
Fantastic. You're fairly quiet. I don't know whether you're able to... Don't know if you have any control over your mic volume. If not, I'm sure we can all just put our volume up. That's not a problem.
Green, first of all.
There we go. We've got you. Your normal volume again now.
Yeah, and can you see this? Is it showing the presentation?
We can't see it just yet. There we go. We're getting it now.
A bit of technical.
Yeah, we've got you.
We're not doing very good for the recruiters in the technical side, are we? Hi, nice to meet everyone. I was just chatting with some of the other panelists about how doing this virtually is sometimes a bit harder with no interaction. But look, I'll go through a bit about our company just to give some context in a second. But we, and it says that, do a lot of work with UK SEDS. And this is actually a presentation we done at the SEDS conference in Bristol a few weeks ago. And we spoke to a lot of the early careers members. And one of them was probably one of the biggest things is interview techniques, especially when we're looking at transferring from academia to the commercial to business and actually not getting some support, etc. So we tried to put together a few hints and tips around that area. That I'll go on to the next slide, but we do have a lot of industry experience. Unfortunately, yeah, me and my business partner have over 20 years combined experience More than I like to admit, because I definitely didn't even know what recruitment was and thought I'd be in it for 6 months. But over the last 4 years, fortunately been working for a startup in the space sector, and then more recently set up our own business trying to help the UK and ESA space network. But we've been lucky enough to work with some unbelievably innovative space companies, some companies that have done amazing things from a technical point of view, but also as growing businesses. And probably the biggest thing that made us start our own business in this is the passion within the sector. And I think that's something that I see a lot, which makes us want to do things like this and give back. I was a graduate very longer than I want to admit, and I found it tough getting into. I didn't have that support, and the space sector is kind of got this mist around it. It's quite hard to get into. I think it's definitely a marketing problem. Yeah, there's so many great space companies and supply into the space industry out there, but it can be hard to get the foot in the door, and that's what we try and do, especially for graduates and students. Everything that we do for sort of candidates, we don't charge. We don't want to charge. This is something that we give back, and yeah, probably to my business partner and accountant, we give a lot away. So we try and do that, because you are the future workforce, and I think that's something that you need to remember, that these companies out there, they want to hire you just as much as you want the job, and remember that. But I think that something here that we understand, we work with a lot of startups and SMEs, and that's something I want to highlight. You don't just have to work in the industry for the big primes or have a name on your CV. Yeah, there are so many good companies that are smaller, maybe don't have a big name, but you will learn a lot more from. I work for a big global corporate recruitment company. I've worked for a startup, and I'd go for the startup every time. All right, you learn a lot more. You're at the front of it. Okay, but the good thing here is we understand what these hiring managers, what these business owners are looking for. We talk to them quite a lot. Okay, so that knowledge we want to pass over, yeah, because we want to build the industry. But anyway, that's enough about us. There's some stuff that Derek and Jesse mentioned that, again, I'm not going to try and sit here and steal off them. But the biggest thing that I sort of mentioned is, I'm going to go near, is the networking, being proactive. Okay. We did a workshop a few weeks ago, and I think about 20% of the room weren't on LinkedIn. And look, it's unfortunate that it is the biggest network. There are other networks out there, but it's definitely something that you should build your profile, get your personal. So most of the hiring managers or businesses that you're going to be applying for or looking to go to jobs for are on LinkedIn. Okay. Build that up, and it's also a way of selling yourself indirectly without saying what you do, as Derek mentioned. So look, when it comes to an interview and getting an interview, yeah, this is some of the tips that we recommend, but we recommend doing this anyway. Yeah, so if there's companies you're interested in, sectors, connect with them, go on LinkedIn, read posts, yeah, understand what they do, look for mutual connections, or reach out to people that work there. Okay. It's very much proactiveness is probably one of the biggest things. There's a lot of skills. You're all very talented. You've all got good degrees. Yeah. There's certain things that are going to set you apart. And these little tips, I'll be honest, I interview a lot of people. I've hired a lot of people. Yeah. If they haven't looked on my LinkedIn, that's already in, and yeah, we shouldn't be biased here, but I already know they've not done the research. Yeah. That this may seem very simple, but review the website of the company that you're going to be interviewing for. Yeah. This is going to help also with your CV. Yeah. If you're looking at applying for a role, go on the website, understand what they do, and potentially, if you're really interested in it, tailor your CV. But go out there, see our articles. They are important. Yeah. These things, review their products, understand what they do, and see what experience you've got that matches them. This is also good to understand if it's the right business for you. I know the media create this thing that there's not a lot of jobs out there. That there's actually a skill shortage. Yeah, there's the other side that there are a lot of jobs out there. You can pick the job that you want to go to and the company that you want to work for. Yeah, all right. This will help. Yeah. And then that also leads on to the questions that in an interview, it's not a one-way street. Okay. It's not the company asking questions to try and find out your skills. And I think that's something that I say to not just early career people, but also people that have been in the industry. Yeah. asking questions is a tool that's going to help you in an interview. Yeah, it shows that you've done your preparation. Yeah, it shows that you're interested, you're being proactive. Okay, but it will also get the questions you answered to find, is this the right job? Is this the right business for me? Is this the right company? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, but going on to some that after you've done your research, you've had a look over it. Okay. There's some stuff that you can do in terms of your CV against the job spec, okay, and looking at, and I think someone mentioned, I think it was Derek, some of the strengths, yeah, okay, looking at your strengths, but also looking at your weaknesses. I think this is something that people need to embrace. Yeah, you don't want to sing and dance, say, oh, I've failed here, I failed that, but we are all going to fail. Yeah, we have all failed. It's what you learn, it's the lessons that you take from it that I think are very, and hiring managers are very interested in. I spoke to someone the other day, and it's a standard analogy, and that, again, I'm going following on Derek here with some analogies, but skills, the biggest thing skills can be taught, but attitude can. Okay, admitting that you have weaknesses and then what you've done to overcome them, the opportunities and the threats it is against a job, show that you can see a problem, you can face it and deal with it. Yeah. Okay. That is so much important. The soft skills are becoming ever so important. Okay. But also what this allows you to do, it gives you some examples, it gives you some questions, it gives you something to prepare for the interview. So we always say, look, try and do 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses, 2 opportunities in the job and 2 threats. Yeah. Okay. And that just gives you some idea to speak about. And this is going to be very hard. And we speak to people in academia that, well, I haven't got no work experience. Yeah. So how can I answer these questions? Yeah. I think Jesse hit the nail on the head earlier. Things like volunteering for these groups, for doing work experience, but also in your own life. Yeah. I'm sure there's strengths that you've had in a friendship group with communication where you've sorted out an issue and resolved an issue, or you've faced a challenge and that you may have made a mistake, and what you've learned from that. Real life experience can come into this, and it is the hardest thing until you get experience, being able to answer interview questions, being able to show your experience. Okay. But practicing it, going through it, having this documented is going to help you a lot during the interview. Okay. And it shows your real life. Again, we do a lot of research with clients, especially in the industry, and sort of speaking to them, they're like, if people just answer the questions with the generic answers, I know they're not done their preparation, I know not interested, and I know that they're probably not trustworthy. Yeah. Okay. Putting your own spin on it and working this out shows that you're a human, shows that you make mistakes, and that's going to make you more employable. Okay. But there's some stuff that we also wanted to go over, because I think that this may sound silly, but there's some interviews, there are some things that you can and can't do well. All right. And again, I think very much the virtual and on-site, yeah, look, we're moving out of the pandemic, hopefully, and we encourage a lot of our clients, if they can, to do face-to-face interviews. It's a lot easier for you and it's a lot easier for them. You can actually read people. Sometimes talking to someone over a screen, it can be very tough. Okay. But look, I think one of the biggest things that we've went over is dressing for the job that you want to look for. Look, I'm sat in a t-shirt now, and it's very relaxed, yeah. But look, if we're going for an interview, we always sort of say smart business, yeah, business casual. Put a shirt on, yeah, if you can. You don't have to sit there in a suit, especially virtually. You may see it simple, all right. But dress smart. You're not just only because the impression it makes, and it does make an impression, but also for yourself. You'll feel smarter. You'll feel more professional in it, all right. But also by dressing like that, be yourself. If you don't wear a suit every day, don't put a suit on, all right. And then there's one tip that I haven't sort of put down there. Always ask. So if you're interviewing, if you've got an interview booked in, if you're for a recruiter, if for a company direct, ask the question. Yeah, no one's going to make you. It's not going to go against you. You're not going to look stupid. All right. If you don't know, ask the question. That I've worked in the recruitment, as I said, long before, and I had a candidate within my first 6 months who turned up to an interview as a pirate, and this is no word of a lie, all right? And he didn't get the job. Yeah, funnily enough, all right. Be yourself, but try and dress smart, because first impressions do count. Look, there's some little tips on here in terms of online. I think for yourself, make sure that it's in a quiet area, yeah, that with no distractions, to make it easier for you. If you can be at home in your own room with no distractions, yeah, that's going to help. Look, sometimes it has to be done in a coffee shop, but just think about background noise, people walking across, taking your attention. That's going to take your attention away from the interview. And at that time, interviews are nerve-wracking, yeah, no matter who you are. Yeah, you're lying if you don't think they are. You want to make it as easy as possible for yourself. And look, some of us have had technical difficulties here, myself included, but make sure the connection's correct. Make sure you've used your equipment. Make sure your headphones work if you're using them, and just practice before. Okay, it's all going to help you in the interview to help you be less nervous. And the more we prepare, all right, the easier it is. And use the chat function. Something that might sound a bit weird, but if you've got examples, if you're talking to someone and you've got some examples or some documents, or they haven't got your CV, use the chat function, put that in there. All right. And in-person interviews, yeah, probably a lot of companies are going away from this, as I said, but they still are there, and actually they will help you. We put down the tip there, be punctual. I'd say that for the virtual interview as well. Don't be late. Have a drink, okay? As you said, I'm sat here, I've talked a lot. Don't do that in an interview. All right. This is a perfect example of what not to do. Yeah. Take your time, have a drink. All right. And relax. Ask for that water. It's okay. Yeah. Again, hiring managers are not ogres. Yeah. They're not there to catch you out 9 times out of 10. Yeah. They've been in your position. Yeah. They want you to do well. Okay. Taking a drink of water actually shows that you're thinking about things, you're taking things in. All right. It's probably one of the biggest things. And yeah, as I just said, I should probably take note of that. Look, keep your answers as short and precise as possible. Look, hiring managers know when you're in the interview, interviewers are going to know that you're going to be nervous and go on a little bit. This is where the practice comes in. This is where having some answers down. Okay. If you don't know an answer, don't try and lie, don't try and blag it. Okay. Give that and say you don't know. Okay. Or if you don't understand the question, get them to go over the question. Okay. It's definitely something that I'd look at. All right. And again, once you've had the interview, it doesn't stop there. This is probably one of the biggest where we find most people fall down. And if I've talked quite a bit, if there's something that you're going to take away from this, yeah, it's the follow-up. Yeah, this is going to make you stand out. I wasn't working with them, but there's someone in my gym the other week. He had an interview. He said, "Look, you're a recruiter. What do you think you should do?" And I just asked, "Have you followed up?" And he said, "No." Yeah, just even thank. So he sent an email, thanked him for his time. He actually got the feedback last week, and he got the job. And he asked them what was the main difference, and they said, "You were the only person that followed up." Yeah, all right. This is it's even common courtesy, it's common respect, and there's a big thing in the industry about people not getting feedback from their interviews, which is absolutely awful. Yeah, you should never go to an interview and not get feedback. Okay, this is one way of making sure you get feedback. Okay, so during the interview, ask if there's any concerns or reservations with your application. Again, that's going to let you know how you did, how you can improve for the next interview. You might not get this interview. That's okay. Yeah. Okay. Interview. Practice. Yeah. Okay. That will help with that. Ask what the next steps will be. Yeah. So then that's going to help you with the feedback and shows you're proactive, and thank them for the time. Yeah. Like so many people do the interview and forget about thanking them, etc. All right. There's basic things that you can do to help yourself. Okay. Online, again, any concerns, reservations, you can do the same. Yeah. It's all the same there. And then after, get their details and follow up with an interview. Yeah. Thank them for their time. If there's something you liked about the interview, if there's something that you felt you did wrong, yeah, bring it up. Yeah, it is going to make you stand out. Okay. And that is what this interview sometimes is, especially in the early careers. They know you're not going to have some of the skills. They know that you're not going to be a perfect candidate. Okay. It's about development. Okay. This just shows that you're proactive. This shows that you're going to be good to work with, that you're professional. Okay. And that is 9 times out of 10 what people are looking for. All right. But look, just to summarize on that one, I think interviewing is tough. Okay. There is things that you can do, and most of it is in the preparation. Okay. All right. By doing that preparation, that's going to help you network. Yeah. That's going to help with other opportunities, connect with people. Okay. and speak to people, practice with each other, ask your friend if they've interviewed, what they did. Can I practice with you? It may sound a little bit silly, but go through that. And my last thing and the biggest thing, be proactive and do that follow-up. All right. And then that's it from me. I'll try and get that as quickly as possible. And thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Ross, thank you. That was really, really helpful. I think the interview tips are something that are almost universally applicable to everybody. I think we all go through these experiences, and actually a lot of these tips are probably applicable even outside of the interview context. So really, really useful stuff. Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to hand over to Vito to talk us through a bit of Space Careers UK. Thank you, Vito, for joining us on short notice. I really appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting us, Callum. I will try to share my screen.
Please do.
Let's see if that works.
Yep, we've got you there. We're not
Okay.
in presentation mode at the moment, but we can see the slides.
I'll go now. It should start now.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Great. So, thank you for inviting us. My name is Vito Latorre. I'm Operations Coordinator for Space Careers UK. We are here to explain what the UK space sector is offering, what role you might expect to find, and how Space Careers can help you on this. So let's first start on UK space sector is including over 1,500 space organization companies, including from small startups to universities. Is constantly growing. Last year there were over 50,000. There were around 50,000 employees, and it is also constantly growing from the political point of view, as national space strategy was created in 2021, and is UK Space Agency is tasked to delivering. UK space cluster are all around the country. There were some launches a few months back in Cornwall. There will be some in North Scotland, and but there are anyway some clusters all around the countries in Glasgow, Leicester, and Orwell. So there are no rigid rules to get in the space sector. The roles might vary from the technical jobs to more wider open jobs role. There is no correct route. You can choose a different path, and the most important things is to do what you like, what you enjoy most. These are some of the roles that the UK space sector is offering. We can see engineering, of course. They help to design and work to build satellites and rockets. But there are also other roles such as communications, medias, and teaching as well, and other different roles which make understand that you don't need to be in STEM if you want to get in the space sector. And this is what we try to promote in the Space Careers. Here are some of the internships that, some of the careers routes that you can take, from internships to graduate roles, direct entry jobs, master and PhD students, and PhD opportunities. The graduate scheme are very competitive, and so in order to be one of the candidate of the best candidate, it is important to gather some experience. The ones before were not the only path available. After your graduates, you can take a PhD or a master's. There are some technical jobs again in astrophysics, astronomy, or other roles specifically to the space sector. But there are also PhD opportunities open for policy and law, which can help you to get in the space sector as well. You don't need 3 internships, masters, and graduate schemes to get in the space sector. You can take also a break and maybe join in the industry after a while. The important is that not being burned out is the best thing for your career. So get relevant experience is quite important. Trying to do your best to get some of the opportunities. There are volunteering internships. There are also summer school, summer placements, and these also help you to get in the space sector. Also keep update with the space news. These help you to do some networking and doing a great conversation when you participate at networking event or conferences. These are some of the opportunities available. Volunteering in UK seats is a great opportunities. Also, the guys were talking about Europlanet Society. So of course, like be a volunteers is a great chance to gather some experience. But also there are experiences in ESA, which offering 1 week training course to get some experience in the sector. And there are the space placements industry, which lasts as well for kind of 4 weeks, 2 weeks, which help you to get in the sector as well. These are these are a page of from our website. We offering at the moment over 300 job roles only in early careers, plus 300 more if you are a senior. We're offering writing CVs advice, but also advice regarding interviews and career advice. We help you to sharing some events, articles about people in the industry, and young students that are maybe change their career path, which is something that could happen if you go forward in your career. There are currently offering 15 volunteers around the country. We also offering some volunteer position in space careers. Be happy if you want to apply for those one. It is important to open a candidate profile. We're offering this service on space careers, where you can add your companies and save your jobs, and you can receive messages and emails about specific employees' jobs profile. Thank you, this is Space Careers. If you want to email us on the email, feel free.
Thank you, Vito. That was a wonderful presentation. I think that what you offer at Space Careers is very valuable to the community. So I'm glad we've been able to make this connection, and thank you for joining us. Thank you to all of our speakers for the wonderful presentations. I'd like to just open the floor up now for some questions. We have one already, which we'll get to in just a moment. But again, for everybody watching, please do put your questions in the Q&A box below, and we'll include them in the discussion. So Simone asked, for Derek and anyone else interested, from a recruiting perspective, I'd like to hear your insights on the best practices and don'ts for early career individuals when approaching the industry. What strategies or behaviors do you believe are most effective for us to adopt, and what should we avoid doing?
Happy to take the floor on that one, Callum. Yeah,
please do.
Yeah, no, I think it's a point that's been made already. When you're an early careers professional, the most challenging thing, in my opinion, is actually just getting your foot in the door, as you'll very well know. You know, it's as Vito mentioned, it's a really, really competitive landscape. It's and often hard as well when you don't have that pre-existing experience. A recent example that I gave in a previous presentation was of a job that I posted on LinkedIn. Now, this was for a junior mechanical engineer. Within 1 hour, I had over 100, within 12 hours, I'd had over 150 applicants, which is just mind-boggling. And I can imagine if I was a junior mechanical engineer looking for a job, I'd feel quite disheartened and put down by that. at the bottom of that job description, the job advert, sorry, I had put a section saying, for questions, for any more information, to make yourself known, contact me. How many people do you think phoned me or messaged me directly? 0. So what I would certainly say is that proactivity is absolutely the best. Ross made some fantastic points about making yourself memorable, following up after it. These are very, very small gestures. I also once had a candidate who brought a set of 12 donuts from Krispy Kreme when they were meeting an employer, and I thought that's a fantastic way to drop somebody's guard down, but I certainly don't expect that. To answer the question, I think a really proactive approach works best. Have an idea in mind of who you want to speak to, what it is that you want to get into. Again, Ross made some fantastic points about identifying those career opportunities. And then once you know that, go to these sorts of events. I mean, this is a fantastic step. You're already engaging with your network, you're meeting people. Continue to do that on LinkedIn. Reach out to people directly, drop messages with hiring managers. And don't just go for live vacancies either. There's a significant part of hiring that goes on beneath the surface. And I think as an early careers professional, there's absolutely no harm in putting the feelers out there, having those discussions. It might not always lead to fruitful outcomes, but you never know where it's going to take you down the road. And then conversely, when it comes to don'ts, I think I've got a couple of opinions on that too. And it kind of comes back to my last point. You don't want to be applying for every job out of there. And one of the concerns that I have as somebody that's involved in the hiring process is when I have one individual applying for 10 different jobs. Now, that to me either says one of two things. This person is an absolute rock star and they can do mechanical engineering, aeronautical engineering, electronics, they can do every single element, or alternatively, they're not quite qualifying these jobs themselves. So equally, have a think about that in your approach. Please avoid the temptation to just click the early apply button on LinkedIn. And indeed, I know it's very tempting, but a personalised approach, even if it's just a couple of lines, a cover letter, or a personalised telephone call really does go a long way. And when it comes to selecting who we're going to progress to the next stage, who we're going to take to interview, guess who's going to be at the top of that list? It's the people that reached out first, that told us they were interested. So that's probably the main tip I could give around that. And then in addition, just continue the great work that you're doing with your volunteering opportunities, with your extracurricular stuff. Even the small things that you don't think have a big impact, they really do add up. And when we're talking about graduates, we're all kind of here. We're all kind of early careers. So think about the small steps that may be minuscule, but towards the end of the day, we want to be up here. And it's these series of small steps, small activities, collaborations that you do that will take you in.
Thanks, Derek. Ross, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think like Derek there hit the nail on the head when he mentioned the 0 people messaged him. Like, I think this shows that this isn't our day job, this isn't what we do, but there are people out there that care about the industry and care about you and want to help. Yeah, so even if it's not a recruiter, if there's someone at a company that you want to work at, dropping them a message and what's it like to work at that company? I'm looking to be a mechanical engineer. You're a mechanical engineer. People will try and help you. Okay. And that will lead to a lot more. We're very much in social media is a massive thing. Yeah. Building your network, connections, etc. Yeah. Think like that. And probably something that, and I'm going to be ageist to myself here, but the younger generation should be a lot better at. Yeah. But I managed to build a business by connecting, by doing this. If I don't know, I'll reach out and ask someone. You're going to get embarrassed. Yeah. Like, people are going to ignore you. Okay. But again, it goes back to that proactiveness. If I'm hiring, I know someone's messaging me because they're showing that they care. Well, I'm more likely to message that person back and hire that person than not. Okay. So yeah. And then just the last thing I wanted to add is just keep learning. Yeah, like just keep learning. Yeah. If you don't know something, learn it. If you really care and passionate about the sector, you will learn what you need to. Yeah. That mindset is brilliant. Yeah. Okay. And it will lead to other stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to chuck my 2 pence in there.
Thank you. I wanted to pick up on something you said just at the end there, actually, where I think because we do live in a very digital society now, and so much of job applications are done virtually, it does remove to some extent, I feel, that human interaction element that you don't get unless you interact face to face. And even if face to face isn't possible, actually, if it is possible to have something like a phone call or something personalized, like, as you say, bringing with you a box of donuts to the interview is a bit of a wild card, but it makes you memorable because it anchors you as a person in that face-to-face interaction space. I think that's really powerful. So thank you both.
You've got to make yourself stand out. Yeah, sometimes. And there are, again, I've said this, that we're at a SEDS event the other week and people were going, I'm doing an aerospace degree. Like, being honest, there's a lot of people that are doing aerospace degrees, yeah, that you're all talented, yeah, but just think of the amount of people on your course at that one university, how many other universities in not just the UK, but Europe, across the world, yeah. You have to make yourself stand out in some way, yeah, and that's not by going and talking about everything, but going out there, connecting with the right people, speaking to them, asking questions. That's going to make you stand out in the long run. So, yeah.
Definitely. I'd love to also come back a little bit to EPEC, where we started this afternoon. I think there's something that is really what I've seen from EPEC that seems to be a really crucial aspect and is so immensely helpful is the social element. I think when we had EPEC Annual Week last year in Bratislava at ERIM, it was wonderful to meet so many members of the EPEC community in a very social space. It really provides an opportunity to meet people who are at a similar career stage. We've had some wonderful stories that came out of that meeting, actually, of people who networked during that event, and that actually led to them being in the positions that they're in now, in the roles that they're in now, because of those contacts they made. And I think it provides a wonderful platform to meet people who are peers, but perhaps are, based in another country, in a slightly different field. But it really crosses that. It really crosses borders and produces amazing collaboration. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit as well.
Yes, I mean, there are, I think, two main events that allow to do that. The first one, of course, is the annual week, and the other one we've mentioned, it happened during the Europlanet Science Congress. And I think it's very nice anyway it is a moment to share ideas too, not only networking. We usually have at the end of the week a moment where we summarize a little bit what has been done within EPEC in the last years, and then the main subject of that event are actually the people who are taking part to it, and it's very nice to see how all of them contribute somehow. Even if they do not decide to be a volunteer after that, it's very nice to see in that moment how they're able to contribute anyway with some ideas. They say, I had a very similar experience with this other volunteering activity, and I think it can work for your network too. Why don't you try? Give it a go. And that's what I enjoy the most, is the idea sharing moment where the magic happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really important the importance of networking shouldn't be understated, because me, for example, when I was at EPSC for the first time last year, is when I actually met my PhD supervisors, my now PhD supervisors. So going to that event as a master's student, I was quite nervous. I didn't have a network there, but I went there with quite an open mind and sort of spoke to loads of different groups of people, and I found now my research group. So I think it's really important to sort of take that leap and speak to these people you don't know, talk about your research, share your ideas, because if someone else has a similar idea, it might conspire into a project or an opportunity in the future. So it's really, really important to do that. I think as well, just speaking to the importance of sort of going into industry and how you make that transition. I think the importance of what you've done in academia should be really, really highlighted. So you might think, okay, I've looked at data on Mars, for example, how is that relevant? Well, actually, it can always be spun into a relevant skill. So if you've presented your work within your university, you've got presentation skills, you've looked at budgets when you've managed in your PhD, your research grants, all of this can translate into transferable skills. And I think if you're looking to go into industry or just any position after your academic life, you can always upsell yourself. And I think you should keep a record of what you've done, and you can always make this relate to the job that you're going for. And I want to also agree with the point about applying for the things that you really want to apply for. Hiring managers can always sort of tell if you just applied for loads of different jobs and you've got a very general CV, but spending like 10 minutes just changing your CV to suit that position that you really, really want, then it's worth putting in that time. And also having built that network, you might find the positions that way. So yeah.
So actually, this led me to a question for both Derek and Ross. How do you see, I mean, people who transition not to from an engineering PhD, but from a scientific PhD to industry? I mean, if you receive, for example, an application from someone who did pure science during their PhD, do you think they will get anyway chances to be considered, or you think that anyway people who might have already some sort of previous experiences in industry will anyway move forward compared to people who come from academia? I don't know if the question is clear.
Yeah, Ross, you have your hand up. I'll let you take the floor on that one if you like.
I'd probably say just that I had this question quite a lot, and there's quite a lot of transferable skills, but I'd say probably the biggest things with the science thing, especially when we're looking at something like physics or astrophysics, yeah, the biggest thing is problem solving. Within that degree, you need to solve problems, yeah, and that's when we're hiring, that's pretty much what hiring managers hiring someone for, to solve those problems, yeah, okay, so it's what you learn within that, yeah, and what problems you solve using that, okay? But there are also some careers that it can be. So from a scientific side, it's very much going into software, especially when we're talking about algorithms, working things out. So doing additional courses like learning Python, yeah, is going to help you as a scientist, but also it can then help you transfer into the industry, yeah, all right? And 100%, I think we're seeing it very much used to be an engineer, you kept that same job, you would always do it, all right? There are very much blurred lines and that crossover. And I might contradict myself here a little bit, but if you need to get a job out of the space industry, but it's doing mechanical engineering, okay, that's okay. Yeah, you can always come back into the industry, and that's something to look at as well. Work experience is probably the most important thing that people do want, being able to work in a work environment, understand working as a team, working with other people, solving problems, yeah. It's okay. So yeah, I think that in answer to the question, there is very much transferable skills that you can do. And if you're a scientist and interested in mechanical, do a course. Yeah, there's loads out there. The government help with a lot. Okay. And also, even if it isn't specifically space, there's a lot of supply chain into space and you can work in other sectors.
So you don't think that anyway is a disadvantage if someone remain too long into academia? Anyway, they will be considered for positions? Because I heard kind of controversial comments in other occasions where basically people who were carry on with their academic career, they did struggle way more than to transition to industry, rather than maybe people who finalized their PhD and they tried immediately to move into industry. So what do you think about the timing?
There are going to be biases, yeah. Your journey is your journey is something that I'd always say. The space industry used to have a problem with women in the industry. Now it's getting a lot better, yeah. And we've got to look at the industry as what it's going to be, yeah. And I think there's a lot of people out there that want to change these misconceptions, okay. Of course, there are going to be people that think that, yeah. But if you've been in academia for 10 years, again, looking back some of the stuff that Derek went over, look at some of the things that you've learned out of that and how you can convey that to a hiring manager, okay. It's all about how you market yourself, yeah. There are priests, you can't control them. You can only control what you can do. And yeah, like I try to, if I had a hiring manager the other day that said he would only recruit from a certain university, and I said, we're not working with you. Yeah, because of that, yeah. Actually, there's amazing people that go to maybe not your red brick universities that know just as much as someone that's been to Cambridge or Oxford. Yeah, I use those examples, and sorry if anyone does go to Cambridge and Oxford. But these conceptions may be there, but you can only control. If you want to stay in academia, because that's what you want to do. If you want to come out of it, yeah, that's what you want to do very much. This is your career. And I say this a lot, your life. Yeah, there's loads of misconceptions. Don't read everything you see in the media. Don't read everything you say. Yeah, all right. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you both. We have one more question in the Q&A. This one is for Vito. The question is, what sectors of the space industry do you believe are currently prioritized in the UK space strategy? I can think, for example, that Earth observations are greatly prioritized in ESA in terms of budget. How about the UK?
Yeah, it's a great question. We believe that both the upstream and downstream are growing in UK, and of course the downstream sector, which is Earth observation and data science and analysis of data, is growing constantly, and this is because it's a background of a lot of activities help us to monitor the climate change and monitor the levels of the oceans and ice melting. So it is important to working on the background of that data. So yes, I believe that in UK there is like a growing on that side, but it is also important to look at all the space activities and sectors that are constantly working on different parts of the space industry.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions, and everybody for continuing the discussion post presentations. That was a really valuable session for me, for where I sit. We are getting close to past now, so I'm going to close out the session by thanking our speakers, Melissa, Jesse, Derek, Ross, and Vito, for joining us, for delivering great presentations and for fielding our questions as well. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the amount of effort that goes into these sessions of producing the slides and showing up. So from me, thank you. I really appreciate it.